What is Shavuot? Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Vanderels, one of the community pastors at Founded in Truth Fellowship. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the little bell to be notified whenever we post new content or go live every week with our weekly church services. Also, feel free to comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. And if you feel a desire to click that dislike button, well, nobody's perfect. I want to take a quick moment to talk about a very significant season that we're about to enter into. That is the biblical festival of Shavuot, or in English, the Festival of Weeks. But it's more commonly known by its Greek name, Pentecost. This is an ancient festival that followers of the God of Israel have been keeping for thousands of years. It's among several other important festivals that Israel celebrated in the Bible. And these biblical festivals had deep significance in the life and teachings of Jesus and the apostles, as we'll see. So, what is Shavuot? Well, the biblical festivals listed in Leviticus 23 and along with the pilgrimage feast in Deuteronomy 16 are divided into two categories, the spring feasts and the fall feasts. Shavuot marks the end of the spring festival season. You have Passover and the week of unleavened bread. You have the first fruit ceremony within that week. And then from there, you count to 50 days to the feast of Shavuot. Here's what it says in the Bible. You shall count 7 full weeks from the day after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering. You shall count 50 days to the day after the 7th Sabbath. Then you shall present a grain offering of new grain to the Lord. Leviticus 23:15 through 16. Now, from the time when the first fruits offering is made, you count 7 weeks, 7 Shavuot, to the feast of Shavuot. Now, Shavuot is a harvest festival, the same as unleavened bread and Sukkot. But in the Bible, these festivals have a symbolism beyond merely celebrating the harvest. They memorialize past events, specifically as it pertains to Israel's journey from Egypt to the Promised Land. As we've talked about in other videos, Passover is a memorial of Israel's deliverance from Egypt. Then, according to tradition, 7 weeks after coming out of Egypt, Israel is given the Torah at Mount Sinai. And that's what this day commemorates. It's the day when the Lord betrothed Israel and they became His people. Metaphorically, marriage vows were given when Israel spoke as one, saying, "All the Lord has spoken, we will do," in Exodus 19:8. And then the poetic marriage contract was written down in the form of the Torah. That's why Leviticus 23:17 says to wave 2 loaves of bread on the day of Shavuot. A tradition states that these loaves of bread actually represent the 10 commandments that were written on the 2 stone tablets. Another tradition is that when God spoke the 10 commandments to the people at Mount Sinai, He spoke in multiple different languages. Remember, a mixed multitude had come out of Egypt with Israel. So when God spoke the 10 commandments, they would have heard what was spoken in their own language. At least that's the idea. This is a really interesting concept when we get to the New Testament. Just as Passover is given a deeper spiritual significance and fulfillment in the light of the death and resurrection of the Messiah Yeshua, Jesus, the same is true for Shavuot, or Pentecost. Passover now not only memorializes Israel's deliverance from Egypt, it memorializes our spiritual deliverance from sin and death. Shavuot now not only memorializes God's giving of the Torah, it memorializes the incredible event that we read about in Acts chapter 2, when God poured out His Spirit on the disciples. They were given tongues of fire, and the gospel message was preached in multiple different languages. That incredible move of the Holy Spirit has continued to this day as people around the world are coming to know Yeshua as their Messiah. Lives are being transformed, and God's kingdom is being established on earth as it is in heaven. By the way, what were the disciples doing in Acts chapter 2? Oh, they were all together celebrating Pentecost, Shavuot. Indeed, God chose to launch this world-changing, spirit-driven movement on the feast of Shavuot. So it all goes back to the gospel. It all goes back to Yeshua and His kingdom. That's what the biblical festivals are all about. Now, you might be asking, how do we celebrate Shavuot today? Well, there's a number of things that we can do according to the Bible. And there's also many meaningful traditions that we have developed over the years as well. First of all, starting with first fruits, we count 50 days to the feast of Shavuot. This is known as counting of the Omer. Every evening from first fruits leading up to Shavuot, you simply count the day, and some then recite a traditional blessing, which goes something like this. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al seferot ha'omer. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with your commandments and commanded us to count the Omer. Some families have additional traditions that they do during this counting of the Omer. For instance, you do some crafts with the family and create a special calendar for this season. Maybe you could pick your favorite Bible verses for the kids to recite and memorize every single evening leading up to Shavuot. As for the actual day of Shavuot, well, in the Torah, we're told to treat it as a day that is very special, a day of rest. So we don't go out to work on Shavuot. We don't go mow the lawn. We don't go build a shed. No, we cook, we feast, and we fellowship. We enjoy the gift of rest that God has given to us, remembering the ultimate rest and celebration that we have in the Messiah. This day is also called a holy gathering or holy convocation in the Bible. So on Shavuot, we should get together with our local church or family and friends to worship the Lord and celebrate all that He's done for us. During Shavuot, it's also customary to give to the poor. This is based on the Torah commandment to leave the edges of your field unharvested for the poor to glean from, which is also connected to this festival. Also, it's tradition to read the book of Ruth during this season. This is because the story takes place during the harvest season. Also, Ruth was a Moabite who made the decision to become part of the people of Israel and follow the Lord. This reminds us of when the people of Israel came out of Egypt and made a commitment to following God at Mount Sinai. Also, as followers of Messiah, the book of Ruth reminds us of our own new identity as part of God's people through the gospel of Messiah Yeshua. So if you're a Christian, I really want to invite you to partake in this amazing celebration. Along with all of the other biblical festivals, Shavuot is truly a time to rejoice and praise the Messiah Yeshua for all He's done. It's all about Him. It's all about Jesus. So, to summarize, Shavuot, also known as Pentecost, takes place 50 days after the day of first fruits during the Passover week. Every night, we count an extra day off the calendar leading up to the central festival in the biblical religious calendar. And on Shavuot, we celebrate God's mercy, graciousness, and salvation. In the New Testament, the Holy Spirit was given on Shavuot in Acts chapter 2, fulfilling the prophecies of Jeremiah and Ezekiel concerning humanity being given a new heart, beating with the Spirit of God. This equips us to go into the world and be the ambassadors of Christ. So I invite you, check with your local church or Messianic fellowship to see if they have anything special planned for Pentecost or Shavuot, and join in. Hey, if you enjoyed this message, go ahead, give us a like. If you didn't, feel free to give us a dislike. Please let us know what you thought in the comments below. And hey, don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell to be notified when we upload new content and when we go live with our weekly church services every single Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.